Welcome to On Texas Football. I'm Bobby Burton, joined by Rod Babers, a lifetime Longhorn, former NFL player, all-conference cornerback as well. We're here for the second watch with Rod Babers. Rod broke down the film this morning, has done his charting, got his notebook out and done all the little scribbles on it and whatnot. He's ready to bring you guys the goods today here on Second Watch with Rod Babers. Rod, first of all, your overall thoughts on the second time through watching this game a little bit more in detail. I've got a list of things you want to, almost a laundry list of things you want to go through that you saw, but overall, what are you thinking? And, you know, Longhorns now ranked number one in the country. More importantly, are they deserving of that in your opinion too?
Honestly, I think they are. If you're looking at them compared to, the other peer programs around the country and how they've looked through the first three games, I don't think there's a team out there that's looked better than Texas through the first three games. And what they showcased obviously this past weekend was their depth. The depth on this team is unbelievable. I mean, how many guys end up going down? You had a starter at running back who didn't even start the game for you because he was a little nicked up. And, you had your starting left tackle went down at one point. Your starting quarterback went down at one point, starting cornerback. Another one of your running backs got nicked up in Trey Wisner, and yet you still ended up scoring 50 plus and almost beating a team by 50. This is a very deep team. I mean, last time Texas had a team this deep, it was, when they were playing for a national title. Not actually 05, because I think this might be deeper than 09 team, just because they didn't have the O-line depth. They didn't have the depth on the offense and O-line and at the skill positions, right? They had a good all-time great wide receiver in Jordan Shipley. In 08, you had two of those guys and some really good players, Chris Obanaya on that off, but I don't know if they went this deep at wide receiver and this deep on the O-line and this deep at quarterback, even though, Garrett Gilbert was pretty good too. It just seems like there's a ton of depth everywhere for this Texas team too. Give Sark a lot of credit, man. And obviously a lot of those guys came back. We'll see what happens with, Quinn Ewers in the abdomen injury that he has. But I can't remember Longhorn fans not stressing about an injury to the starting quarterback. And that's how deep you are and talented at that position. That Longhorn fans, they're not necessarily stressing. They know they're in good hands with Arch Manning.
All right. This episode of Second Watch with Rod Babers brought to you by our friends over at Autograph. Feed your fandom. Download the app today on Texas. Use that referral code, of course, and you get all the news you could want and everything from fan gear to tickets, etc. Autograph is your source. Referral code on Texas. Feed your fandom there. All right. Hey, Rod, let's start. Your first one you marked down for me that you said you wanted to talk about was more 3 high on third down from the Texas defense. Johnny Nansen having an effect on this defense. Pete Kwiatkowski maybe has seen enough of it too in his days in the Big 12 last year to start adopting some of that stuff. But let's look at it. More 3 high safety look on third down. Texas, by the way, Rod, held UTSA to 2 of 17 on third down conversions last night.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, Bobby, on several of those, they broke out the 3 high look, and it wasn't just with one specific group of DBs. I saw it late in the game with a lot of the second and third string DBs, which tells me it's a staple in the playbook. And this is something I thought with Johnny Nansen, you'll see these exotic looks that are matchup based. And we even saw it in week 1, right? He broke out that NASCAR dime package. And I saw them run the 3 high safety look with that NASCAR dime, running an inverted Tampa 2 scheme. And I thought, okay, maybe just for Colorado State. But then we saw them break out the NASCAR dime versus Michigan. And they've since they saw them break it out in this game. But what I thought was interesting. So now we know that's part of their repertoire, right? That's part of what they have, part of the packages they can use. And it seems to me with Johnny Nansen that nothing is something that he'll just break out specifically for one opponent that's matchup based. Once it's in the catalog, it seems like he's going to use it, because we saw the 3D tackle package once they broke out versus Michigan. We saw it versus UTSA in short yardage situations where they had the 3D tackles on the field, essentially running what looks like a 3-4, but they make sure their DNs were the Sorrell or Burke. Sometimes Burke will bump inside or Sorrell, and then they'll have them as outside linebackers, Colin Simmons as an outside linebacker with the 2 off-ball linebackers. So that's something that we saw for the first time in the Michigan game, but we see it again versus UTSA. So I think these concepts, these exotic looks, this is why at Arizona, he had so many of them, right? Arizona, they ran the 4-3, the 3-4, and the Joker, and the dollar package, and the quarters package, double eagle flex. Because when he basically, once he installs it for one specific matchup, he doesn't discard it. He just keeps it in the catalog, and he figures, hey, situationally, I can use a matchup. It even got him in trouble. They're so matchup specific now in their personnel group is because of the versatility. Remember early in the game, they wanted to match up on a short yardage situation. They ended up with 9 guys on the field and called the timeout because they are matching personnel as much as I've ever seen them. And that's based on the versatility, but also I think based on Johnny Nansen. Now the 3 high, I thought maybe that's something that they're going to use only with the NASCAR dime package when they have 6 DBs on the field. Not the case. Now I've seen it with the nickel package. I've seen them break out the 3 high look when they have basically Jalen Gilbo looks like a 3 high safety. Sometimes it'll be Jadae Barron in there at the nickel as a 3 high safety. Makuba, Taft. It's different guys that they're mixing and matching. So the 3 high look, especially specifically against third downs. I saw it probably 4, maybe 5 times on third downs in this game specifically. And it seems like to me, they want to use it on third down, no matter what personnel grouping they're in on defense. So if they're in nickel or they're in dime, Texas now are running the 3 high. So if you can't beat them, join them. I think it's a creative collaboration. I do think it's something Johnny Nansen is influencing with PK, but also I think it's something that Sark has given his okay with, his stamp of approval, because they saw it so much in the Big 12. You had to master it in the Big 12 as an offensive mind to try to counter it. And now they know all the weaknesses and the strengths of it, which is why you probably see it specifically with Texas on third down. You're not seeing it on early downs. You're not seeing it on first and second downs or run downs. You're seeing it when they know teams are going to throw the football, because it is a really good defense, a really good defensive structure and presentation against spread offenses.
This is interesting because it shows that Sark's not only willing to be tap into new ideas on offense, he's willing to tap into new ideas and copy things on defense.
Yes, sir.
And maybe that's one of the reasons he went out and got Johnny Nansen to do that this offseason, because look, we know it's well chronicled that even accomplished quarterbacks had problems with the 3 high look at times until they got a real feel for things like Sark did. You said he figured out the answer for the 3 high at some point last year. It's still a scenario where Texas is, forcing that on opponents from another viewpoint, really. And it sounds it's working apparently. I mean,
it is one of your big play. I believe that Colin Simmons sack, if I'm not mistaken, was with a 3 high look behind it. And if I'm not mistaken, that Ethan Burke big man touchdown was with a 3 high look behind it. So getting some big plays out of it, and I think it's a staple now. I believe Texas is going to have it now in their repertoire.
I have a question for you. Does that help? Does that help with those crossing routes that Texas had so many problems with last year?
I do. I think it does, because it gives you more options to pick those guys up on different sides of the formation. And it depends on what they drive. They're still playing the same coverages. They'll play, 2 inverted Tampa 2. They'll end up playing cover 3 out of it. They'll end up playing sometimes a man out of it. They can play the same concepts and coverages, but I think it confuses the receivers, because the receivers are also looking for, are they in zone or in man? Sometimes that sight adjustment changes what they run, changes if they're going to stop or if they're going to continue on the route. And of course, it confuses quarterbacks. It takes them a while to process it, and that's all you need is that split second for that quarterback to be a little bit confused, to be a little bit uncertain, indecisive, and then usually you pair that up with a pass rush look of some kind and some funky exotic front, and then you force the quarterback to have to process pre-snap and post-snap. It worked. Like I said, it worked really well against Sark. I think Sark at this point, he decided, man, if it works really well against me, I'm one of the best minds out there. This is why he initially brought in PK. right? It was because he went up against PK, loved PK scheme. When he was at Alabama, had to go up against it. It was tough for him to try to diagnose and decipher, so he brought him in. Coaches end up doing that a lot. I think the same thing can be true of this concept that it gave him so much trouble. He decided, to hell with it, man. Let's just steal it. Can't beat him, join him.
I love it because it shows a willingness to adapt and
Yeah.
also give Texas an edge a little bit, more versatility, as long as they're good at it, right? That's the key. Can't just throw stuff out there, but gives Texas another piece to the puzzle, I guess. All right, the other things you had written down. Let's talk about a really impressive freshman last night, Colin Simmons. You wanted to talk about Colin, but you said you wanted to talk not necessarily just about his pass rush ability, but the versatility that he brings to the defense. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy, obviously, that can get you double-digit sacks in a season. I think he can threaten it this year as a freshman. I really do. I think he's got that kind of natural pass rushing ability, the bend and the BGO. He's got all the raw materials. But I think Texas kind of has recognized that his athletic profile can allow him to do a little bit more. And they don't want him to be pigeonholed. They don't want him to be a guy that, when he's there, they know everybody knows exactly what he's going to do, right? He's always screaming off the edge with the speed rush. So I've seen a couple of times where he's dropping back in coverage based on the formation and one of the adjustments. So essentially becoming almost an outside linebacker and a Sam linebacker in certain situations. And I love that early on. I thought early on, hey, young player, just let him rush the passer. He'll be great at it. And you can slowly but surely put more on his plate. And maybe he's a prodigy. Not maybe he is. He's a prodigy. So they figured, you know what, to hell with the slowly but surely. Let's just give him, as he continues to improve, let's give him more. He continues to improve with that, give him more. So I think you're going to see him drop back in coverage a little bit more now. Will Muschamp would disagree with this. He always said thoroughbreds don't go backwards. But I think in the modern game where you're trying to promote versatility and you want variety, I think it's healthy to be able to move some guys around. And he can do it. He can handle it. He can handle, covering the flat. He can handle covering guys who are going to be running shallow routes. I mean, he's athletic enough for that. They're not going to ask him to do too much, but I do think it's important to recognize that he's an elite pass rusher right now for Texas, but he's not just that. Texas using him a lot of different ways.
That's amazing that you're calling a true freshman an elite pass rusher. I mean, just
it
3
feels
games
like that to me. Yeah.
3 games in. But here's the other thing I would say. You're talking about his versatility. He had 6 tackles on Saturday night, Rod. And he also had 2 tackles for loss. He literally is everywhere. He was second on the team in tackles to Anthony Hill on Saturday night. So he's getting a lot of run right now. We'll see what all this means, but Texas trying to use Colin Simmons in a number of ways. So to your point, I think the term was he doesn't get pigeonholed into one singular thing. But at the same time, they lean on his ability as a pass rusher when they can. All right. One of the things that we noticed last night, and you said you were going to go look at it this morning, and you actually did, offensive adjustments for Arch vis-a-vis instead of Quinn.
Yeah.
How does this offense change? Should it change a little bit? You have a third-year starter versus a guy going to be likely right now making his first start next week. What are you seeing in the offense, and what did you see from brief glimpses from Sark in this game that would lead you to believe where you think things are headed with Arch?
Yeah, I mean, obviously with a week of practice, right? If Arch is going to practice with the starters, so that could change a lot of different things. But just based on what I saw in the film and the tendencies, number one, the pass rate, right? Just recognize that. Quinn, we've noticed really high pass rates. When I talk about giving the offense to Quinn, guys, the first 9 plays in that game were passes. The entire first drive, I believe Quinn was upwards close to like a 70% pass rate before he went down. So they were throwing the football a lot. Obviously, with Arch, that's not going to happen. So his pass rate was much lower. He was closer to 40-45% pass rate. So I do think they don't want to put too much on the shoulders. That could change though with a week of practice. They could decide, no, we got a game plan that's Arch friendly, and we're gonna continue to lead with the pass. But they may be more balanced. Period. With Quinn, I thought hey man, they're gonna be early down pass rate is gonna be 60+% every game. Now with Arch in there, he's probably gonna seek a little bit more balance in the passing game, which makes a lot of sense because you don't want to put too much on a young quarterback, right? So I think that's something to look at. But the pass rates for Quinn, they were starting to escalate the more and more deeper you get into the season. So I still think when Quinn comes back, those pass rates are going to still stay really, really high. Pre-snap motion. Now, I also noticed the pre-snap motion when Quinn was in right around average, which is close to 55% for Sark. That's usually around his average. That was for the last couple of years. But when Arch came in there, the pre-snap motion dropped off a little bit and decreased, and that's understandable. You don't want a lot of pre-snap penalties. Maybe he's not comfortable, navigating all of that pre-snap. So maybe with a week of practice that changes. But I would predict you're going to get lower pre-snap motion rates and the pre-snap shifts in motions. And it's still going to be a part of the offense. It's part of the DNA of Sark's offense, but it's not going to be with the high rates. Hell, in Michigan, you had your second highest rate of pre-snap motion since Sark has been on campus. I don't think you're going to have that much with Arch. And by the way, that hurts the offense. Everything improves. Yards per attempt, yards per rush, completion percentage, your overall passer rating, everything improves with pre-snap motion. So if you don't have as much, then the offense not going to be as effective. Also, I think you're going to I think the deep ball Sark may explore the deep ball more with Arch. Now, he hasn't been totally ignoring the deep ball with Quinn in there. I think Quinn has 7 deep ball passes so far this year and actually doing pretty good. I think he's connected on 3 of those 7 according to Pro Football Focus. But Arch, man, early on, he's throwing the deep ball with Arch in there, right? You get early on, you get the Ryan Wingo touchdown early on. You get that other, obviously, we'll talk about this too, the Wingo Arch connection. I think he may, throw it, and that was the one actually threw from the end zone. I think it was an out and up to Matt Go, and they didn't connect on that one. Yep. He actually took a shot. I think he may explore the deep ball a little bit more with Arch, but maybe he's just noticed, and we saw it in spring game, that Arch just has a better deep ball and better deep ball accuracy than Quinn. But that's something to look at. That may come back because looking at the frequency of it, it definitely is a higher frequency of deep balls when Arch was in there with the small sample size we have. So that's something to watch. Also, the connection I just brought up with Ryan Wingo and Jonte Cook. Jonte Cook and Ryan, I'll give you these numbers. First of all, if I went and looked, I was like, man, it seems like he's got a connection with those guys. And Brian Roberson brought it up in our post game. So I was like, you know what? Brian's he might have his finger on something there. Let me look at it. So far this season, you have Jonte Cook and Ryan Wingo have 13 targets total. By the way, they've caught all their targets, Bobby. All the targets to Jonte Cook and to Ryan Wingo, they've caught all the targets. According to Pro Football Focus. All right. Reception percentage, 100% on those targets. And Arch has thrown 8 of the 13 targets to those guys. In what, 3 quarters of football, basically? We're talking about like 3 quarters of football. And you go look at the yardage. I believe right now, Jonte Cook's got 91 yards receiving, 61 of those. So like 67%. That's from Arch. You go look at Ryan Wingo. He's at 197 yards receiving, somewhere around there. Close 70, 75, 79% of those, I believe, are from Arch. So, hey, I don't know. There's something going on with Arch and Ryan Wingo and Jonte Cook. And I heard my man CJ Vogel bring it up, and he made a good point that maybe it's in practice, those are the guys he works with. Those are your second team groups of receivers. He's a second string quarterback, so maybe those are the guys he gets a lot of reps with. And honestly, let's be honest, if I'm throwing the ball and I know Ryan Wingo's running a route, I'll wait to throw the football to Ryan Wingo too. I'd wait for him to clear open because the guy's averaging over 31 yards per touch. So yeah.
How good do you think Wingo is? Look, you've seen great receivers in the NFL. You've seen him. You've watched him for years. What has he got that makes him different a little bit in your eyes? At this, I know it's early in his career, but I'd like to. I mean, I see it. But I didn't play cornerback in the NFL. I didn't have to ever defend those guys. I'm just out there looking at the talent level and seeing the results. What do you see in Ryan Wingo that makes him a little different?
Yeah, usually with most receivers, God has given them, one elite trait, like one or two elite traits, maybe two, like Xavier Worthy, right? He's got elite speed, right? A world-class speed. Give me some of that. His stop and start, actually, his acceleration and deceleration, I think, for Xavier Worthy is highly underrated. But those are kind of two of his traits. But, he's got obviously some drawbacks to his skill set and game too. But with guys like Ryan Wingo, he's got like 5 elite traits that I have to defend and account for as a DB. He's got elite speed, right? I don't know what his 100-meter time was, but it was something crazy in high school.
10.5, yeah.
So he can run. He's got the size, though. You know what I mean? He's got the size, too. He's a big frame receiver. His contested catch ability is uncanny. Like, he almost has the ability to make himself broader with his arms and the way it positions his body and his body control. So I think that's also elite from him. And I think his yak ability is underrated. We ain't seen a lot of it, but man, when he gets a ball in his hands, he is. I know you've compared him to Roy Williams, which was a great comparison. He's better than Roy with the ball in his hands, in my opinion. Like as a natural yak guy. So I just think he has got so many elite traits I have to account for. With Xavier Worthy, I'd be thinking, all right, I'm gonna get my hands on him. I ain't gonna never let him get a full speed, period. I just can't let him get to full speed. If I can keep bumping him around and force him to, kind of wrestle with me for most of the down, I'm good because he'll never get to full speed. So that's what I'm focused on. But with Ryan Wingo, if I try to focus on that, like I'm gonna wrestle with him, try to keep him from going full speed, he can big bully me. He can body me. He can just, play Debo ball with me and bully me out of the way and use body positioning. But if I try to, let's say, hey man, I'm trying to, get my hands on him, he can run around me too. And I'm like, no, I'm gonna take away all of his short physical. He's trying to be a possession receiver with me. I can, I'm gonna try to take away the easy stuff. He can beat me over the top. So he's got so many different ways to beat me. And most receivers got 1 or 2 ways they can beat you. But he's got like 5 or 6. Like, look, I mean, even with the in and around, you saw that, right? The guy can just, he take off. Guys, he's averaging 31 yards per touch. They've given him the football. Like, he's actually getting some looks. And yet he makes an explosive play, every like 2 times he touches the football? It's crazy.
Yeah. Hey, one other thing that I was wondering, do Quinn or Arch has better movement? We're getting back to the Arch versus Quinn, how Sark might do that. We saw the long TD run. Okay. How might Sark implement Arch's athleticism a little bit more maybe than he did with Quinn into the offense?
Oh, no doubt. You talked about this when we had the post game and the first completion for Arch in like the last 3 games he's been featured in or hadn't gotten a chance to play. The Tech game, the Colorado State game, and in this game, as you should say, it was the same concept play. It essentially is a bootleg waggle with a flood concept, and he always hits that backside drag route, which is either Jonte Cook, it was DeAndre Moore in this game, but he loves it. He loves to roll out there. So I think you're going to get more movement, period, in the offense. He's going to move the pocket a little bit more, and I think they want to protect him, by the way. So I don't think he's going to be encouraged to be keeping it on them zone reads. I know it's an element now. Now it's on film. Teams have to account for it. So it's going to help the running game. Because now that backside, that end can't just crash down every time. He's at least got to take a couple of steps to make sure that Arch is not going to keep it. But, now I guarantee he's going to be – now, listen, against Georgia, all bets are off. Against Georgia, you may see him do that to break tendency, but something tells me that Sark is probably telling them, let's slow down on that unless it's just an obvious read that you have to take. Let's hand that ball off. But you'll get more movement in the offense. I mean, think about his big plays. The touchdown early on to DeAndre Moore, he's on the move. The big throw to Ryan Wingo, the 36-yarder on that play action
roll left,
flood thumb. It's a flood thumb concept they call it, and we've seen that. Basically, Matthew Golden, remember in the Michigan game, he catches that 20+ yarder. It's the same concept, except probably from a different formation. But I think he's comfortable throwing the ball in the move. I think Sark likes him throwing the ball in the move. So I think that's what you'll get a lot of too with Arch in the game.
Interesting. All right. One other thing that you had here that you wanted to talk about today before we get going is you think how Texas and Steve Sarkisian are using Isaiah Bond is unique and somewhat different than how he's using the other receivers at this juncture. What is it that you're seeing from Bond that is different necessarily than Golden or DeAndre Moore, Ryan Wingo, etc.?
It's just, well, in this game specifically, and I wonder because, of all the injuries at running back and the depth issues at running back, and you didn't have Jaden Blue, and Trey Wisner got nicked up in this game. Of course, we know about Baxter and Clark. You're going to have other ways to supplement the run game. And in this game, I think it was 103 yards receiving for Isaiah Bond, and 64% of those came on throws behind the line of scrimmage. Quick hitters, boom. And DeAndre Moore actually is proven to be a really good blocker on the perimeter. That's one of the reasons they keep comparing him to Jordan Whittington. I would not be surprised if you see a couple of more of those to Isaiah Bond, just to try to get him on the edge as quick as possible. And guys, that's basically a long handoff. That's an extension of the running game, except you're using wide receivers to do it, to execute that concept. And I think he just may be the guy. Like, I don't know if Matthew Golden is that elusive with the ball in his hands. I think Silas Bowden may be, but they tried to kind of get him going in the game too. Maybe he is, and maybe they'll try to utilize those type of concepts with him. But right now, Isaiah Bond, not that he's that elusive with the ball in his hands, but he's so damn fast. He goes from 0 to 100 like that. All he needs is a small sliver of daylight. You don't even need to hold your block, just getting the dude's way for him. And if that DB takes the wrong angle, the wrong step, he will just annihilate an angle. And I think Sark may have seen that in this game and maybe deciding, all right, maybe he's our guy, and maybe you can work in a Bowden to that extent that can do it. And the truth is, I know it's freaky, but Ryan Wingo can do everything. So he may be a guy you start looking at on those wide receiver screens too, because I just told you he's great as a yak daddy. So I think you'll look at wide receivers who, and that's one thing Xavier Worthy was really good at. He was small, but man, when X got the ball in his hands in a low space, oh man, he was great making something out of nothing and getting, kind of maximizing those screen opportunities. So I think they're looking for that knack in a receiver right now. And maybe right now Isaiah Bond's the best option for it.
So basically the receiver becomes an extension of the run game on the outside. I mean, you could have look, Jaden Blue runs that route too.
He does.
It's in motion.
Exactly.
I mean, it's a very similar situation. It's just different positions are doing it. From different alignments. Yeah. But I agree with it because, look, they are thin at running back right now, Rod. I mean, they've got issues there. There's no doubt about it. Trey Wisner was gimpy a little bit after that first series. He did not have his normal explosiveness. I don't know how else to say it other than he's cat quick, and something about him after that injury did not look as cat quick as he normally is. So he's a little banged up. They're going to get banged up the rest of the year. Right. And so getting wide receivers involved as part of the run game makes a lot of sense, especially someone like Isaiah Bond, who can take it 50 plus yards to the house on one of those plays and make defenses play. All right. I want to ask you this. Look, overall, your rewatch, anything that you saw that you were disappointed in or concerned you on second watch?
That is good. Something that was concerning. Maybe on defense, the quarterbacks outside the pocket have had a little success, against Texas, making some plays. That may be something, going to be nitpicky here. Of course, the big run they gave up. I mean, these guys reading their own gaps. That's, I think that's correctable. Bad angle by the safety there. Those are all things that are really correctable. So if you're going to be nitpicky, that's something you can throw out there. And on offense, they were sloppy. I mean, they were sloppy. There was times they were just, and it makes sense, right? You're losing some starters, guys are going down. So I'm not saying, oh man, it's a problem. No, it's not systemic or anything. But there were times they were just sloppy. You had, turnovers. Had a couple of turnovers, had a pick, had a fumble. And that was by a young player, so ball security. And I just think at times, Texas got just a little bit sloppy. So this is a great game that the coaches can go to and be highly critical, and yet you still won by damn near 50.
Yeah. That's good to be able to do that, isn't it, Rod?
Right.
That's what happens with your number one team in the nation, I guess.
That's exactly right. The standard is the standard. The standard is the standard.
Yeah. Hey, I would add the one thing I am a little concerned about that I'm concerned about punt coverage right now. It did not look tight on Saturday night to me. So something for you to file away and maybe look for next game for us, if you don't mind. All right. That's Rod Babers on Second Watch with Rod. Appreciate you very much, Rod B. Guys, we've got more coming today. Yeah, we got the live stream at 7 o'clock. Longhorns ranked #1 in the country. For Rod Babers, I'm Bobby Burton, our producer, Matt Hutchison. You guys have a good Sunday afternoon. Hook 'em.
Hook 'em.